Thanks very much, David, for those good comments about me. Not too many times to hear that. Especially for my students, they have a good nickname for me. This presentation today is going to be on a project that Jeff, my co-director, Dean, who used to be the director of the center, and myself have been working on for the past few years. What we tried to do with this project initially was to look at the role of accounting, given that we are accounting researchers, in the democratic deliberations on water privatization in Africa. And we focused on Ghana, which is my native country. An earlier version of the paper was presented at various conferences, and we got it published in Accounting, Auditing, and Accountability Journal, which actually is one of the premier outlets for our type of work. We're working on the second piece, which looks at the ethics of the whole idea of commodifying or privatizing water. Hopefully we should be able to get that one out and get it correctly working on that. Today I'm going to be speaking on water privatization in a more general sense. And I would like to have a lot of comments from you in terms of how you think we could direct policies in this area, or our vantage point. Now, I'll start off with an outline. I'd like to put structure to things that I do, and this is just a brief outline of what we'll be talking about. We'll start with water services in sub-Saharan Africa, and then look at privatization as a policy option that has been deliberated. And then we focus on the case of Ghana before we look at the influence of the World Bank and other actors in the promotion of privatization, and then we draw a conclusion from that. So let's get started. I start from a more macro level, looking at that. Resource scarcity. Someone's going to argue, hey, resource scarcity, what exactly do you mean by that? It is a common phenomenon across the world, so why do we talk about it in an African context? I totally agree that resource scarcity is everywhere across the world. However, when we talk about resource scarcity in the African context, we're looking at an acute situation, a situation that is dire. What we see there is a very good example of people struggling for water, something that we apparently take for granted in our Western homes. I'm going to provide you with some statistics to start off at a macro level to see how this is not the situation just for the water sector. It cuts across all sectors in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm going to provide some statistics on other sectors before we zoom in on the water services sector. Statistics that are truly staggering. It is. Let's start off with electricity. A lot of African governments are arguing that they need to industrialize their countries. That is true. That is an effort that they are making. There's no way how they can achieve this goal without a regular supply of electricity. Look at the statistics up there. Of the 1.6 billion people who have no access to electricity in the world, about 547 million are resident in Africa. 547 million, that constitutes about 67% of Africans who cannot boast of having regular supply of electricity. That's a very serious situation. Second statistic, another very crucial sector, food. We all take food for granted here. 3 square meals guaranteed, no dispute about it. Of the 53 African countries that we have, 25 are currently struggling with food emergencies. I mean, the situations in Ethiopia is very much known in the media. The situation in Zimbabwe, the situation in Mauritania, all these are situations that we are very familiar with. Another important sector, healthcare. Of course, someone is going to say, even in the United States, they have a problem with healthcare. That is true. But then again, if you look at it in the African context, again, we are looking at a very grave situation, a very serious, a more serious situation where people are completely in trouble in terms of access to healthcare. Some statistics up there. If you look at bilharzia, of the world's cases, about 82% can be found in the African continent. We're talking about 212.6 million people. Almost a quarter of the population of Africans have this particular problem. Another one that is very close to home, which is very common in the media, HIV/AIDS. Out of the 32.9 million people who are HIV/AIDS positive, 22 million is in Africa. Again, we're looking at about 67% of the world's cases resident in that continent. Finally, bringing this one home, the water services sector. At the Johannesburg Summit, water was identified as Africa's lifeblood. Despite that declaration, Africa still provides the lowest access to water, with about 36% of Africans not having access to safe drinking water. Here we're talking about drinking water, not water for the lungs, no. Not for showers, no. We're just looking at what they would put in their system to survive. 36% of Africans cannot boast of that. Again, look at our situations here, we all seem to be taking this for granted. Now, let's look at the situation. I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on the water services sector. What is causing that? Why do we have 36% of the population not having access to water in Africa? That's one possible explanation. Underinvestment in the water services sector. What we see in the picture there is a very common phenomenon. There's no single African country that you go and this will not be a picture that you could take. It is representative of Africa. Very poor culture of maintenance, underinvestment, lack of funds, all kinds of things coming together. And I mean, look at what we have there. If I got water from this pipe and gave it to you to drink, chances are you say no thank you. Absolutely, and you have every right to say that because you can't guarantee the safety of water that passes through this pipeline.